I just realized I'm going to load into this one just a little bit late, but that's okay. We can get through the intro quickly. It'll be fine. And Rabbit says peasant wins if a science spot is available. That's interesting. He does seem to like his scientists. I will admit that. All right, sounds like we're on into the game. As soon as I can see, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, the map's... It's a Zoltar map. I'll give you a sneak peek.
Oh, yep. That doesn't look all that pleasant. Hello, everyone. Welcome to game number 1. In today's potentially best of 5 series, we're going to be featuring Megawarrior, Pavlos, Hexapus, and Peasant. Peasant already on the board, going with a very early robotic found. 26k is what he's going to pay for that. Philithanic's still here with us doing some commentary.
Yep.
So welcome to him. And what about the rest of this map? Peasant's on the board. He's HQ2. What else are we looking at?
So what we're looking at is a lot of low prices, except for chemicals. It is a power colony with a little glass kiln. Water is extremely awkward on this map. Iron is really awkward. And carbon is pretty much non-existent. There are hexapus founding next to this double low carbon and single aluminum. There's a triple, which above him, which Pavlos is going to go for.
Wow. 2 scavengers this game, despite the fact that there's, I think, literally only low carbon available. Good thing there are no nukes for these players. Otherwise, that could be a very rough ride for them indeed.
Yeah, so Peasant did take the most debt with his found, but has flown out to a very fast lead, upgrading before HQ2, before I think anybody else found it, if I'm remembering.
Yep, pretty much as soon as he dropped, he hit that button. $30 steel will do that for you, of course.
Yeah, he's got the only problem with his found is he just has this one medium water tile nearby. But he's a robot, so he doesn't need the life support. It'll depend on how these life support prices go throughout the rest of the game.
Absolutely. He does have the option, of course. He can try and maybe aim for slant drilling. When you've gotten off to a lead like that, it's always a little bit easier to compensate for some of the downsides your initial found may have by picking up crucial patents or getting into upgrades a little bit sooner. We'll just have to see how Peasant chooses to handle it this game. Already up to HQ3, though. He's been pulling in silicon for quite some time. Should be pretty easy for him to go ahead and establish power and head pretty easily up to HQ4. Cheap electronics without any machine shops at the colony, making life just a little bit easier for him.
Yeah, Megawarrior founded second as an expansive. He founded in a patch of aluminum, shipping from one single high iron mine, making use of that 1/3 less fuel cost that the expansives have. And also picked up one of the high waters, few high waters on the map. His, however, can get a little bit of adjacency from these lows in a line.
Certainly. I do want to point out very quickly that Peasant, going for the pretty traditional these days, the meta choice of going for a line of solar panels rather than that triangle. Very, very effective against circuit overloads and power surges, both of which are available. We've got a large selection of black market items. This time around, players going to be able to get quite aggressive, especially with network viruses and circuit overloads
Pavlos
on the board as well.
Already getting aggressive against Megawarrior's geothermal plant. The price of Lagoon squads has not moved. Really has not moved at all.
Yeah, just got one Goon Squad purchased, and everybody knows where that is, of course, after the initial circuit overload onto Peasant, going to have revealed that location. So nobody else gets to pretend that they're protected. Everybody knows the score of this game.
And hence Megawarrior suffers for it. This high iron auction is, well, a little bit less interesting because it's right next to Peasant. Hexapus is going to pick it up for 18k, though. I imagine he was bidding on it just to drive the price up for Peasant, but at least be able to throw a solar panel down on it.
Absolutely. He can just dump something on. He's actually going to be a wind turbine. That is a pretty decent cliff for him. Nice and easy use for our scavenger friend. But of course, Hexapus, this game in particular, doesn't have so much extra carbon available, and he's already even moved into a chem refinery. So wind turbines, not the simple decision that they often are for our scavenger players this game.
Hexapus also thinking of going into a geothermal vent. Already has a geothermal vent claimed. That's going to use up even more carbon, and carbon's already at 57. no sign of going down.
Yeah, I do wonder if you're in this position. He's already secured the additional wind turbine location. It feels like, especially with dynamite on the board, you can't afford to get hit by dynamite on a geotherm when carbon's being difficult. Maybe it could have been a better option to go ahead and just go for a pair of wind turbines, partially defend those, cost just a little bit less than the geotherm when carbon's this expensive. But Hexapus, he's going to try and make this geo work.
He is making his geo work a little bit better than Megawarrior. Megawarrior, having to build that geo twice, is lagging behind HQ2 with all the other players at HQ3. He has the upgrade if he wants it, takes the upgrade, reaches HQ3. Pavlos with a line of wind turbines, making a little bit easier for him to put up because he has this triple low carbon, pulling in 5.2 carbon a second.
Very simple for him. Little bit of a misstep on the circuit overload here from Hexapus, unfortunately. Targets the weak wind turbine that Pavlos had available instead of the strong wind turbine. Either way, getting blocked off by the goon squad in the middle. Just a little bit less effective than one might have hoped at getting rid of power. And even with that particular target, Pavlos feels very, very comfortable simply transitioning into a greenhouse farm. That way the overload is effectively negligible for him. Just a little bit light on the power for the moment.
I want to take a quick look at the colony right now. There is this really, really excellent Pleasure Dome spot that I'm very disappointed nobody's claimed yet.
Yeah, Peasant in particular potentially could have gotten into that. He's already HQ4, been sailing through pretty effectively. I understand getting the farm triangle down, but this solar panel in particular just feels like there's maybe an extraneous tile here that could have been committed to the dome instead.
Yes, with two scavengers, one expansive, that Pleasure Dome's going to bring in a lot of money. Unfortunately, we can't see what that would be as casters, but it's going to be somewhere north of 150 a second, I'd imagine. Pavlos is going to claim the spot.
Yeah, the estimate that I'm seeing right now says 172, and that's just going to go up as the game goes on, and that is not including the 40% adjacent entertainment bonus, so that should be a fantastic little tile once it comes online. As you say, Pavlos gets the spot once he gets to 4. That's going to work out nicely for him. Peasant and Hexapus, though, both moved into some patent labs, and Hexapus goes ahead and picks up Superconductor, making his geothermal plant all the better, but it does mean he will need to keep it protected.
And it gets blown up.
No good anymore for not at least another 40 seconds on that geotherm. Very expensive repair too, $57 carbon on that.
Yes, especially when you are HQ3 as a scavenger behind both a robot and another scavenger at HQ4. Not something you'd like to see.
No, not a comfortable position to be in at all. Peasants, Patent Lab hasn't quite finished yet. It'll be in just a couple seconds. Preferably, he'll have started something very soon. Worth noting that Peasant does have a spare claim at the moment. Would be pretty easy for him to pick up something like virtual reality, go into a Pleasure Dome. Instead, he is going to go for, it looks like, securing his source of water, picking up slant drilling as his first patent goal. Meanwhile, carbon scrubbing, potentially a very reasonable decision out of Hexapus, given his difficult carbon situation. And Pavlos, on the other hand, on his way toward a patent lab as well. He does not have anything queued up yet. It'll be done in about 15 seconds here.
People hunting for Pavlos's hologram, not finding it.
The patent lab is constructed.
Nope, those farms are farms, and a reasonable target to hit with the network virus, I think, in particular because, well, food's getting kind of bad. Food's getting a little bit weak, and so there is the option of just sticking Pavlos with some bad buildings, and maybe you'll happen to spot a hologram in the process. You never know.
Indeed.
274.
Pavlos going for
by the way.
virtual reality. Nobody else, I believe, is going for virtual reality at this point, so assuming he picks that up, his 274 Pleasure Dome will jump to somewhere around 350.
Oh yeah, that is going to be an absolutely fantastic dome for him to have access to. I mean, we're talking easily later in the game, a $450 dome once everybody's upgraded, if nobody else starts competing in that market. And with dynamite, power surges, even a circuit overload on a Pleasure Dome could be a little bit difficult. All of these tools available to attack. Pavlos should be able to make some decent money from that, but he will want to make sure it stays defended as it is right now.
Financial Instruments is an interesting auction right now, as most players are in good bond ratings. Hexapus being the lowest at B, picks it up for 14,000, maybe a slight overpayment for that patent.
Yeah, it's not going to get a whole lot of work done this game, it looks like. Everybody has been sitting at a very comfortable debt rating, except for perhaps Hexapus this game, but it does keep the patent away from anybody else. So if he's falling a bit deeper into debt, he can at least not have to worry about that particular concern. HQ5 is actually going to go to Pavlos first this game. Feels like the Pleasure Dome's pulling in overtime for him, along with these elemental quarries, which I imagine have been a bit more profitable than he would have expected, as Hexapus is having to continually buy up carbon this game.
That Pleasure Dome right now making a ridiculous 462 per second, although Hexapus building a Pleasure Dome is going to cut that down a little bit.
Yeah, good to see other people start competing in that market. It always feels bad because you know your Pleasure Dome is never going to compete with their Pleasure Dome, but it is going to cut into their profits, so it's an important thing to do. Well, there's only so many people to go around, and they only need so much entertainment, as it turns out.
Yeah, so Peasant's a flying start has slowed down a little bit. He is right in the middle of a pack right now.
Yeah, he seemed to be struggling to just make money once he had hit HQ4, and so he had moved into this patent lab. Very nice tool to have. He got slant drilling, which will be nice. Later in the game, he'll have solid access to water that he might not have. Without it, he could be stuck like Hexapus is, where Hexapus just has a couple of high tiles separated from each other, no adjacency going. He's going to avoid that, but he is paying a price for it, potentially missing out on that extremely profitable Pleasure Dome that Pavlos worked his way into. And Megawarrior actually gets up to 5 before either Hexapus or Peasant. That's a nice thing to see for an expansive player, but maybe not much of a surprise given that he had elected to not move into the patent lab quite as early as everyone else. Instead wants to get through those upgrades, get all those extra claims he receives as the expansive
Megawarrior
colony.
is going to lose Thinking Machines to Pavlos. However, right now Offworlds are not looking that great. The highest price is $390 for the Offworld price, and the highest profit per launch is only 30k.
Yeah, not looking too great. You've got chems, you've got fuel, you've got oxygen. None of them are particularly impressive, though I do see a potential for chems in particular to become a valuable launch after an optimization center has worked away on them for a little while.
We do have 2 optimization centers on the board, one from Pavlos, one from Megawarrior. With these high on-world prices, I would like to see a few more out from the rest of the players.
Oh, Hexapus, man, he really wants this hacker raid. Despite almost being in $100,000 of debt already, he's going to take this tile. Well, maybe not. He was going for 32,000. Megawarrior decides to bid it up onto 36. I think that's actually pretty reasonable for him. He did not have a huge amount of debt. This could be transitioned into a Pleasure Dome very easily if he wanted to, and maybe as an expansive player, he can find a market that everybody else is struggling in just a little bit. So take some good advantage from that hack array. We'll have to see how he gets to use it later in the game.
Yeah, Pavlos and Megawarrior. Okay, Megawarrior finally starting to research optimize power. Pavlos' optimization center is just sitting here unused. Okay, he did research 1 into water, but I would like to see him continue to research more optimizations, maybe power, maybe.
All right, here we go. This is why Pavlos is waiting. He's actually going to go for taking out Megawarrior right here and now. And I got to tell you, Megawarrior, he's got cash on him, but he might be a little bit uncomfortable with this, might even need to consider canceling out of some of this tech if he wants to hold on to the money. He's barely just about there.
Presses the button, he can save himself, and he does.
Okay,
for the time being.
There was an opportunity there, I believe, for somebody like Peasant or Hexapus to get in and finish him off, but none of that's going to happen to Megawarrior today.
No, Pavlos has a slight lead over Hexapus and Peasant, so no reason for them to help Pavlos secure more stock. So I agree with that decision not to take out Megawarrior from their point of view.
Certainly. All right, well, everybody's on up to 5 at this point. Still a close game, although Pavlos still feels like he has a bit of an edge. However, this commitment of cash to a failed buyout, not working out quite as well as he'd like, I would imagine. It looks like he's actually moving back into. Is that a... That's a wind turbine is what it is on his hologram. Not usually what you want to see under a hologram. Bit of a strange situation going on.
That's because Hexapus has been shorting energy ever since he's gotten the hacker array, so that energy price is climbing and isn't going to fall for a little while, at least until other players get into some more power.
Absolutely. Geotherm's doing some nice work for Megawarrior. He has been optimizing his power pretty heavily, and that seems to be working out reasonably well. At plus 4.7 on that, he's not going to be getting a lot of debt, and does have the advantage that he's starting to put Pavlos and Hexapus a little further down in debt. If he can get those two into debt in particular, it might protect what seemed to be his late game plan of Offworlds a bit better, as they'll have to deal with that before they are allowed to attack him consistently. Right, last patent is being auctioned off. 12,000 for peasant.
12,000 for peasant water engine.
Pirates.
A nice bounce on this power surge by Megawarrior onto Pavlos. Pavlos still with a lead over everybody else at this point, has the Offworld going up, which I do not believe anybody else has spotted with a spy. No, the question is, are players paying attention to this weird farm transition from Pavlos?
Certainly, and this feels like a bit of a dangerous move right now, in particular because it hasn't been goon squatted yet. In a game with both spies and network viruses ready to go, Pavlos is actually the one who picks up another network virus, but very easy. If a player spots this out, they can reveal it to the entire game right now by simply dropping a virus onto that suspicious farm. We'll have to see if anybody notices later in the game. Megawarrior actually choosing to go ahead and get aggressive rather than making a transition to the Offworlds himself. Price is now looking much better. You've got a 38k launch, a 40k launch, and a 45k launch available at this point.
And Pavlos did pick up thinking machines earlier, so he's feeling much more confident with that ungooned Offworld. He does have a goon bought up. I'd expect him to put it on the Offworld soon.
Yeah, he's had that for a while and hasn't dropped it in that location just yet, which has surprised me a little bit. It feels like you want to go ahead and defend that tile, but seems to be getting away with it for the time being.
He is, however, in the debt, 151k, so we should be able to pull out from that situation shortly. Pays down a ton of debt with cash. I am not sure that was a good idea, especially considering Megawarrior has both a stock and cash lead over Pavlos at this time.
Certainly, and on top of that, power is still extremely expensive. It feels like it might have been a better game plan for Pavlos moving forward to simply try and get a little bit additional power online, use that to pay down his debt quite efficiently instead of maybe some of these water pumps. Could make a transition into even just one additional wind turbine to help out with that situation, but that's not how it's going to be for the time being. He chooses to give up a ton of cash instead. Wow, Megawarrior's power play has actually worked out very well for him, even with this circuit overload going on. And the dynamite on his geotherm, I mean, he still has an active geotherm going, he still has a solar panel running, still making $1,000 per second in power, having paid through all of his debt with these very high prices. Looks like Hexapus also managing to get in on this, with, of course, his superconductor geotherm, making quite a lot of cash in power as well, having managed to also pay through all his debt. Very interesting situation this game. Been turning around a bit since Pavlos got that Offworld market online, and if he can get bought out, he's going to be a valuable tool for anyone to own.
Right, if Megawarrior can pull the trigger on Pavlos, that will put him in a commanding lead over all the other players in both income that he will get and the stock price bonus. Meanwhile,
alright, so just real quick question for you. I've noted that there is a spot on this map with 5 adjacent warehouses. Even with dynamite, even with circuit overloads, even with network viruses, are you tempted by the 5 warehouse Offworld Market location, that 50% launch speed bonus.
If I'm behind, say I'm in Hexapus's position or Peasant's position, well, Hexapus actually has that 5, I would be tempted. The only thing that's making me not so tempted is the 20k dynamites. So
Yes,
what I do as Hexapus is I start tossing those dynamites around, raise the price of dynamites, then go into an Offworld there. Sure, it'll get frozen, it'll get slow down strike, but that 40%
Still,
bonus.
when it is online, look at all the money. I mean, that's all I can say about that. Meanwhile, we've had some interesting stock interaction going on. Pavlos and Hexapus both electing to get aggressive against Megawarrior. Hexapus did not want to see Pavlos fall out of this game to Megawarrior's power play, and so he's going to help out a little bit. Maybe make Megawarrior a little more nervous about the situation. I imagine, though, he will be undeterred and continue his aggression against Pavlos, really wanting to pick up that valuable, seemingly second-place player right now.
Yeah, this Megawarrior, there is no reason not to pick up the second-place player right now. He is making 600 a second in power before day. That goes up to 2k in power. There are power shortage, a natural power shortage that everybody else has to be furious to see. Circuit overloads come down to Megawarrior, but he has 228k in the bank. He only needs another 150k before he secures Pavlos, who's building a second Offworld.
Wow, a second Offworld from Pavlos. That feels extremely aggressive to me. I don't think it's going to make the money in time to actually pull him through this. Pavlos, of course, if he wanted to complete the purchase onto Megawarrior, he would require $632,000. Meanwhile, Hexapus needs 583. Neither of them very close to it, especially considering Megawarrior requiring only an additional about 160 to finish off Pavlos as stock currently stands.
Yeah, this game is definitely Megawarrior's to win if he plays his cards out right. Meanwhile, Peasant is defending himself, trying to, and then going into Hexapus, deciding that he won't get in on any of this Megawarrior Pavlos action, so maybe he can buy out Hexapus and become relevant in the late game. We'll see if that actually works, as Hexapus has a lot of his own stock defended.
Certainly, Hexapus has a lot of his own stock, and of course also has the option to recoup probably about $140,000 if he chose to pull his own cash back from Megawarrior's stock as it currently stands. That's gotten pretty valuable over time, at worth almost 50 apiece. A little bit of a hit for taking the stock sell, but could still be a great tool if Peasant actually ever became a problem in this game.
Pavlos is maintaining even with Megawarrior in cash. Unfortunately, as you said earlier, he needs a lot more than Megawarrior to make the purchase, so he has to come up with some way to increase his cash flow. This second Offworld will help, as Pavlos is launching 48k profit launches right now, 49k. It'll be a little bit closer than I would have thought, but I still think at this point Megawarrior has the buy over Pavlos. Will remain to be seen if that is the case.
Yeah, my big concern for Megawarrior this whole time is he's really stalled, and I think the reason that he has stalled out in particular is that steel has gotten extremely expensive. $253 a piece for steel right now. Megawarrior really needs to be making an effort to move into that market, get at least a large stockpile of steel built up, maybe sell a lot of it down, pull in profits from steel itself, because what he's been doing for now is simply transitioning building after building after building after building at these very, very high steel prices. That's something you cannot do without nanotech, which is a patent that Peasant managed to get a hold of this game. So that's why Peasant hasn't necessarily been keeping that steel price low for him.
Right. He is pulling a decent amount of profit from all the buildings that he does have, but I would like to see some of those electrolysis reactors be steel mills, as you have stated. He is driving the price of silicon way up, using 4 silicon a second from his 4 glass kilns. Silicon is 230 and climbing. That being said, he's 91% of the way of the buy onto Pavlos. Pavlos is only 80% of the way of the buy onto Megawarrior. looks like Megawarrior
So close.
should be able to get this done. Then the question will be, can his sub-income from Pavlos, which will be quite substantial, power him through to the end of the game?
Absolutely. Megawarrior has the cash at this point if he notices, if he pulls everything together. However, he might not feel quite threatened yet. After all, he doesn't even know Pavlos has those off-world markets, it seems. No spies seem to have come down on top of them from what I've seen.
There's the red button. He clicks
and
it.
he gets there. He got there. All right. Megawarrior now with a pretty strong advantage. No off-worlds for himself. Meanwhile, Hexapus has managed to move into a couple, including that extremely fast launching off-world, 50% bonus on those. But a subsidiary with 2 off-worlds, that is going to be a fantastic source of income. In just a couple minutes, could easily be enough for Megawarrior to power on through, as long as he can maintain these on-world profits for himself as well.
Yeah, right now Pavlos has come back with a lot more cash on hand. The problem is he's buying into Hexapus, which is only going to throw the game to Megawarrior. They need to be ganging up against Megawarrior right now.
Yeah, this is when you can get a little tunnel visioned on one target in particular, Peasant after Hexapus. He really wants that Hexapus buy. It's a super valuable buy if he can get it, but he has to pay about another $550,000 in order to get to Hexapus, and that whole time, Megawarrior just sitting back, making the money. And even if you manage to get to Hexapus, you're competing with an expansive player. Both of you have a scavenger with 2 off-worlds working for you, but Megawarriors will have been active for far longer, and he'll have been stockpiling cash for far longer as well. So it seems unlikely that even if Peasant gets to Hexapus, he can finish off Megawarrior. That said, if he pulled it off, he would have half of Megawarrior purchased immediately.
Yes, that's the only thing that Peasant has going for him in this buy. As for Peasant to purchase Megawarrior, he'd have to spend 932k. Hexapus is only 525k. So only needs 300 more K than he has to complete the buy. Meanwhile, Megawarrior is just going to sit back here, pull in a bunch of cash, watch both of his opponents potentially fight with each other, and go and clean up whoever's left over.
Yeah, Megawarrior, even interestingly enough, making a buy into Hexapus for the time being, which I find a bit surprising. Typically, if I'm in Megawarrior's position, I get tempted to just sit back, develop my large stockpile of cash. Yeah, people are going to attack you, whatever. As soon as somebody looks like a threat, that's when you go ahead and make the move, go in for the kill. But until then, yeah, if they want to fight it out, let them fight it out. You'll just clean up after the fact.
I mean, Megawarrior is making a ridiculous amount of money, has 350k in the bank, making 1.6k a second from Pavlos. Only needs 695k to buy out Hexapus. 855k to buy out Peasant. He's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and he does also seem to be making money far better than his 2 opponents, and that's why things look great for him right now. Just sit back, wait, see what he needs to do. Let them fight it out if that's how they feel like playing.
Now the thing is, for Peasant at this point, if he sold out of, let's see, himself and Hexapus, he would be pretty close to the buy on Megawarrior. The only problem is that window's closed. Megawarrior with 560k cash in hand might be able to straight up buy out Peasant before Peasant was able to get the buy on Megawarrior. But it would have made the game a lot more interesting.
Yep, certainly could have. I do want to point out one thing we did not talk a lot about this game, because it didn't seem like it would become important, is the silicon situation. However, that seems to be a tool that both Peasant and Megawarrior have been able to use to pull in some very significant profits, and I think that's just a little bit of a misstep out of both Hexapus and Pavlos with how they played out the game. Hexapus doesn't have necessarily great silicon anywhere near him, but Pavlos certainly had access to some decent silicon not far away from his base, and simply elected never to take it. And I think that's really a big part of what gave Megawarrior and Peasant a bit more control of this game. Megawarrior does finish up the buy onto Hexapus, so Peasant, he has a lot of that stock. Megawarrior manages to pull some of his own back in the process of that. Peasant, it looks like, still going to need 919 to clean this up. Meanwhile, Megawarrior, 981, very close to what each player needs, but Megawarrior, with its solid subsidiary advantage, looks like he's in a great position to take this game.
Yes, barring any major missteps from Megawarrior, this is his game to lose. Going into an Offworld, excuse me, with those extra claims, looking for this 62k oxygen profit launch or 62k chems. Excellent Offworld launches these games after, since it's Sol 11, but early in the game they didn't look so great.
Yep, that will happen though. Over time, those Offworld prices, of course, will increase eventually. Typically, it's the life support you see as the strong launch, but man, 61 for oxygen, 61 for chems as well. Chems even better since Megawarrior's sitting on a stockpile of 300 of those. Same thing with peasants, so that's what I really want to see flying up into the sky right now. But either way, huge profits in that Offworld market. I think it's very important Megawarrior got the stockpile that he did, managed to start pulling in the cash that he did to secure a couple of those Offworlds exclusively for himself that Pavlos has. Otherwise, things could have been very bad for him this game. Great that he managed to eliminate thinking machines as early as he did.
Yes. Well, Peasant is fallen into D-debt, no black market items to be able to attack Megawarrior with. His situation is looking grimmer and grimmer by the minute.
Certainly is. Peasant also just having so much more trouble actually pulling in cash. He had never secured off-world markets for himself. As we can see, while the on-world prices are not dead by any means, still pretty reasonable profits here and there, they certainly do not compare to the power these subsidiaries offer. 6 stock in Hexapus for Megawarrior, 10 in Pavlos. It's making 4,500 a second off of those alone. I don't see any way for Peasant to compete. And it looks like with stock even and the cash stockpile in Megawarrior's favor, he is going to head into game number 2 with the first win of the day, half of what he needs to take the victory in all the games today.
Yes, a good performance by Megawarrior in a very close game until the what was it, about Sol 6 or 7 when Megawarrior started pulling ahead. Unlike some of the other games this game was in the series so far, this was a game theoretically any player could have won. So,
absolutely.
The other players should console themselves with that for the next game that this isn't a situation where we would expect Megawarrior to perhaps just run away with game 2.
Yeah, I do want to point out, by the way, that imagine if Pavlos had an extra $100,000. Just picture that world, that game, right? He paid down like $100,000 of debt, I think is what it looked like at some point. And he had, when he did that, he had some pretty weak tiles that potentially could have been transitioned into a little bit of extra power instead. And I do wonder how this game would have turned out if we had seen even just a small change like that, or even a small change like going ahead and picking up the silicon so that solar panels were a little more accessible. Just minor details like that that could have had huge ramifications when it came to the end of this game for Pavlos.
Yes, and I'm looking at productions and sales right now. Take a look at Megawarrior's power profits. A ridiculous 568k power sold.
Yeah, that is massive. I mean, he paid through his debt like that, and he had something like 80,000 of it at the time.
The next high, Hexapus is 300k in a normal game would be a lot too, but
oh yeah,
maybe some
Superconductor did work.
Yeah, maybe some questionable power hacks from Hexapus there, just helping keep that price up for both him and Megawarrior, benefiting Megawarrior more than Hexapus. To be fair though, yeah. Hexapus only did 2 shortages versus Megawarrior's 4.
Certainly did. I think that we actually saw some pretty decent hack arrays this game. We weren't talking about it a whole lot, but I believe we had 3 of our players in hack arrays this game. Not standard for an FFA in particular, but certainly seemed to work in their favor, as you state, Megawarrior in particular. with this power play. It was just absolutely ridiculous.
It is very hard in an FFA to find a market that you can safely hack that nobody else is in. So kudos to Megawarrior for recognizing that, hey, sure, Hexapus is making some power money, but I'm making almost double Hexapus's power money, so who cares? I'll keep on hacking that.
Certainly. And there is something to be said for the fact that even if somebody else is in the market, such as in this case with power, if you are in the lead and you're going to benefit more, then perhaps it is the correct decision at the end of the day. I mean, especially once you also consider the fact that Hexapus, I believe, was in far more debt than Megawarrior was. So not only were his total profits much, much lower, about $250,000 lower when we look at it, he also had to pay through a lot more debt in order to get to those profits. So I think great job by Megawarrior to win this game.
Yes, Megawarrior
Excellent game.
With 3 optimizations into power. There are a lot of optimizations on the board. Megawarrior and Peasant both 22 and 23, which was all very reasonable because Offworld prices were high for so long. Unfortunately, Peasant just wasn't able to make advantage of those high Offworld prices.
I love how we had a 6 adjacency Offworld market this game. I think that's like a 36-second launch on that. If it has a full 6 adjacency, something like 39 or 40. Probably 40 if it has 5. That's just, what a silly Offworld at that stage. But not enough, unfortunately, for Hexapus to pull through for him.
No, but love it as Megawarrior.
Absolutely.